What's up, guys? Welcome into a brand new episode of Chargers Weekly. We are 1 week away from the 2022 NFL Draft in Las Vegas. And Money, I tell you, we're spoiled having DJ around us all during the regular season. One of the best draft minds there is. This guy, too, fresh off the beast, Dane Brugler of The Athletic. Dane's going to be joining us on the podcast over the next few weeks, getting you ready and then also recapping the draft. Dane, I've done these Crossfire series with you. They've been a lot of fun. I know fans have really enjoyed them. And we're excited to welcome you into the podcast and have you answer some questions from the fans and from me and Money.
Oh, I can't wait. This is going to be a lot of fun. This is a draft where there's plenty of storylines, plenty of players. I mean, Pro Bowlers are going to come out of this draft. So, let's figure out who those guys are going to be and let's get them on the Chargers.
Yeah, Dane, it's interesting because we did this, I think it was last week, Chris, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. And we did this last year when we talked about how many quarterbacks have to be drafted for this pool of what we think are blue chips to slide to number 13. And we just did this last week. And it's, we figured 4 wide receivers, 3 corners, there's 4 tackles, and we're trying to figure out what is it, 2 quarterbacks? Do you think quarterbacks are going to be drafted before 17?
Talking to, my buddies throughout the league, and they all say the same thing. These guys are going to go. But no one can give me a definitive answer in terms of where that's going to start. That's the big question. Carolina at 6 and Atlanta at 8, Seattle at 9. Do we see a team like the Steelers, instead of just staying pat at 20, go up to get their guy? We've seen it in the past. They will be aggressive for the right player, whether that's Troy Polamalu or Devin Bush. They will be aggressive to get their guy in the first round. But so I think these guys go. But yeah, it's just hard to nail down where those exact spots are going to go, what teams, and then what order these quarterbacks come off the board. Is it Kenny Pickett? Is it Malik Willis? There's still plenty that we're trying to figure out. Last year, 5 quarterbacks in the top 15. We knew quarterbacks were going 1, 2, 3. We knew Justin Fields wasn't going to have to wait too much longer after that. And then Mac Jones. But this year, a lot more intrigue with the quarterbacks. This is a quarterback class that's easy to like, hard to love, but we know quarterback desperation is a real thing as well. So I do think when it's all said and done, we will have 2 quarterbacks come off the board before pick 17. And that's good news for the Chargers.
Yeah, it is.
Dane, when we get this participant list of guys who are attending the draft, I see Matt Corral. I see that we were talking about McDuffie from Washington. Kyler Gordon from Washington's going to be there. What are you hearing about the first round? Because I feel like this has been a year in which nobody really knows the order. And obviously every team's going to have their board and their particular preferences. But the fact that am I reading too much into the fact that Matt Corral's going to be there and maybe a first round pick or Kyler Gordon's going to be there? And I don't really know what to expect in this first round.
Yeah. What we've seen players, not go to the draft, attend the draft, and then not get selected till day 2. That has happened before. They go back to the hotel room, come back on Friday, hopefully have 2 changes of clothes, 2 suits, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, ideally, yeah, I mean, the NFL tries to invite players that they believe will be first-round players. Now, they've invited players that turn down their offer, which, we've seen before. Guys want to be with their families. They want to be at home in a comfortable setting. That's great. This is their day. They should do what's comfortable for them. So I wouldn't read too much into who's not there. But it is interesting, to your point, about some of the names that will be there. Matt Corral definitely being one of them. I think, just a lot of people think Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, Desmond Ridder, probably the 3 quarterbacks with the best chance to be first round picks. Maybe Matt Corral gets in there. Matt Corral is really interesting. He has he reminds me kind of like a shortstop in baseball, a point guard in basketball. Everything he does is quick. His feet, his release, his eyes. Now, sometimes too quick. He played in an offense at Ole Miss where everything was designed for him. It was, he knew where he was going pre-snap based off the read. So that post-snap processing, that's a big question for Matt Corral. But I can see why an NFL team would be able to talk themselves into Corral being an igniter for their offense. The teams want quarterbacks that are going to be able to put points on the board. Matt Corral did that at the college level. He has the type of skill set to be able to do that at the NFL level, even if there's some projection involved with his evaluation.
You know what else is quick? His punch. to the face of a hockey legend. Son, that's what else is quick for Matt Corral. Dane,
You're not lying.
he mentioned Kyler Gordon. I'm going to go with the two Washington defensive backs. As people know on this podcast, I am incredibly biased, especially toward high school studs in Southern California. I love high school football more than anything, and especially when they advance and become great players that end up playing in the NFL. McDuffie on the other side of him. It seems like this is your high character, leader of the defense, everything you would want, but the measurables aren't there. How big of a deal is that? And what kind of slide might that, because it feels like this is one of the cleanest prospects and someone people are really excited about, but then you look at the measurables and you wonder if he could slide.
That's totally fair. And this sounds hyperbolic, but Trent McDuffie might be the most impressive cornerback that I have ever talked to in doing this the last dozen years before the draft. I mean, he is so smart, so sharp. I would throw, I had a good sit down with him and we talked for over an hour, and I would throw all these situations at him. If the offense is doing this, what are you doing? And without even thinking about it, he knows exactly, okay, well, I'm running cover 2, but then the other side's going to switch to a cover 4. We're going bail from this look. I mean, he's so sharp. And that Washington secondary, we know they prepare their guys. It's no coincidence that that program has produced so many defensive backs in the NFL. And a lot of that is because of the versatility. They play man, they play zone. They prepare their guys for NFL life. And Trent McDuffie definitely fits that. But to your point, sub 5'11", under 30-inch arms, that is something that some teams will have their thresholds. They don't want corners that are below 6 foot. They don't want corners that are below 31, 32-inch arms. That will be a problem. Now, for other teams, maybe it's not as much of a problem because they, really, they focus on the processing. They focus on the speed, some of the athletic traits. Trent McDuffie definitely has those. So some teams, I don't think Trent McDuffie will be in consideration for them in the top 20. For other teams, I think he will. So, but I think it is in the realm of possibility that Trent McDuffie could see a little bit of a slide, possibly into the 20s because of the size concerns.
Let me follow up there, Chris, because we talked about this with Asante, right? And we saw him playing the outside and some of the issues he had tackling. He had 2 concussions, both of them coming trying to bring down big running backs. Is that size a concern for McDuffie or no? He's thick. He seems like he's a sound tackler as well. So is that a fair comparison or no? Is that not the size concern for McDuffie?
Just based off of tape, you saw the size concerns more in coverage than you did in anything else. He's actually, like you said, he's an above average run defender. He's really good at coming to balance, using, ideal form with his technique to get his guy on the ground. You do worry about durability with smaller players. There's no doubt. But I think with the size concerns, it comes more with receivers being able to shield them from the catch a little bit. The lack of inches, it'll show on jump balls where receivers are able to high point and there's just not much that McDuffie can do about it because he's just missing those extra 2 or 3 inches. So I think it shows more in coverage than necessarily other parts of his game. I was actually pleasantly surprised with what he does in one sport. I'd
love to be a fly on the wall listening to Brandon Staley and McDuffie have a conversation about playing cornerback and playing defense. I think
they're still talking.
Hey, I'm going to mix in some fan questions, Dane. This is from Rogue Panda 619. Tom Telesco has never traded back. Could this be the year that changes? And you and I just talked about this. Yeah. They don't have a second round pick. There's a lot of talent in the meat of this draft. Does it make sense for the Chargers to maybe drop out of 17 and pick up another selection or 2?
I think you can make the argument that that's something they should look, and very strongly consider without having that second round pick. Being able to, recoup that second rounder would be big. And I think a lot of it depends on, you're not making this move now. Obviously, you're not making it before the picks start. But as you see the first 16 picks play out, if you say they're targeting Trevor Penning, for example, or say they want a right tackle. But 4 tackles come off the board in the first 15 picks. All of a sudden, maybe you're a little more open to moving back because, maybe you're at that point, you want to target a wide receiver or a corner, and you feel good about the wide receivers or corners that'll be available at 25, 26, wherever you're moving back to. So I think a big part of this conversation, it really depends on who's going to be there at picks number 17 for you. But you keep the phone lines open. I know it'd be out of character for this team to trade back, but a chance to get back into that second round, get another day 2 pick, that has to be awfully appealing for a team that could use more starters. Because that's, like you said, the meat of this draft is going to be that late first, second, third round. A lot of future starters are coming out of that range, and to have another bite at the apple, that's awfully appealing.
What's happening with Stingley, Dane?
Teams as early as the Texans at 3 are doing a lot of work on him. It's kind of gone full circle with Derek Stingley. I still think there's a good chance he ends up top 10. I don't think he gets past Vikings at 12, which that might actually be the best landing spot for him. I had somebody with LSU kind of tell me how the chance to land with a big brother like Patrick Peterson in Minnesota would be the ideal scenario for Derek Stingley, because he's not really an alpha. That's not really his personality. But so to go into a locker room as a first round pick, as being looked at as the top corner, that'd be tough for him. But to go to a place like Minnesota that has that setup with the cornerbacks, that would be the ideal spot for him. But Texans at 3, the Seahawks at 9. There are several teams interested in Derek Stingley and what he can bring to their defense.
We were dreaming 2 weeks ago about him falling to 17. That dream's over.
A lot of those dreams have ended, by the way, Dan. We've talked about Jordan Davis dropping to 17. We've talked about Jameson Williams dropping to 17. Then it was Stingley. Like, all of these dreams we've had in the last 2 months are now gone.
Hey, somebody's got to drop, right? It's you never know with Jameson Williams in the ACL. You never know with that. And this is it's a loaded wide receiver class. It's a top heavy wide receiver class. And so if teams have similar grades on Jameson Williams and say a Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson, do they opt for the player they know is healthy and they don't have to worry about not being there for training camp and maybe some question marks about when you're going to be full health? And so you never know with a guy like Jameson Williams coming off the injury. Jordan Davis. Yeah, we just got done talking about this, but not every team's going to be super excited to take a nose tackle that is not a proven player in terms of giving you pass rush. Not every team's going to be on board with that. So I do think the odds are they will go in the top 16 picks, but somebody's got to fall, and so that's the fun of the draft. We just don't know how it's going to play out.
I'm sorry, Chris. Just because before we move on from that with Davis. Because so much of it is scheme dependent, right? Like it seems like Wyatt and Davis are mentioned together. Of course, they played on the same defense at Georgia. But for our listeners that don't quite follow along, it's not just the player, it's the scheme and the scheme fit. Is Wyatt a better fit for Brandon Staley's defense and the kind of tackles that he likes than Davis?
You could make that argument, sure. With Wyatt, you're getting more of an upfield penetrator, a guy that you're going to line up over the gap, and with that quickness, that motor that he plays with, is going to give you a little bit more disruption. And Wyatt, I think, kind of like Davis. I mean, he really didn't get a chance to let loose in that scheme and how he was used in Dan Lanning's 3-4 scheme that they ran at Georgia. But with Brandon Staley, I think that he'd have more opportunities where not only is he going to help your pass rushers with Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, but he's going to be able to provide some of that interior disruption as well. So I think that'd be a natural fit. But, Jordan Davis, what he brings to you in the run game is certainly appealing. I mean, he has a chance to be a really dominant run defender. And I mean, pound for pound, maybe the best athlete in this draft. I mean, you just don't see 340 pounders moving like that. My biggest question with Jordan Davis is just when the snap count goes up, can he sustain that level of energy, that athleticism? And he averaged 25 defensive snaps a game last season at Georgia. They, really both linebackers, front, their defensive line, they rotated these guys in on a regular basis. And if you have the guys, that's just smart, just to keep these guys fresh. But if you're drafting a Jordan Davis in the top 20, you're going to expect him to play 35, 40 snaps a game. And so when that snap count goes up, can Jordan Davis still sustain that level of energy? That's kind of where my biggest question comes in with him.
Next question, Jay West 1017, and Money and I have talked about the running back position a lot over the last couple of months. Are we getting a backup running back somewhere in the draft with a big eyed emoji with tears in his eyes. So this Jay West needs a running back behind Austin Eckler. And we've talked about Austin, 15 to 18 touches, keeping him fresh. Is there a running back that you see in this draft that may be a good fit for this offense?
I think there's several, and we're going to see a couple running backs go round 2 or, top 60 with Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Spiller will probably fit somewhere in the 3rd round. But for the most part, the sweet spot for running backs in this draft is going to be the 4th, 5th, 6th round. We're going to see a ton of these guys fly off the board. And I think it depends on what direction the Chargers want to go. Do they want to go with a player that's similar to an Austin Eckler, where, you can trust him out of the backfield in terms of his hands and running routes? Or do they want more of a complement, more of a power element, a guy that's going to be a bruiser between the tackles? Because this draft has both. If they want more of that interior presence, a guy like Dameon Pierce from Florida, 5'9.5", 220 pounds, runs with tremendous energy, lowers his pads, and he's just a violent runner, and he does not apologize for it. And you also love how dependable he is. Doesn't fumble. He doesn't drop passes. He's reliable in pass protection. So Dameon Pierce is a player that I think will be a better pro than college player, what we saw at Florida. Brian Robinson from Alabama can fit that mold, 6'1.5", 225 pounds. He had a chance to be the guy at Alabama. He did not let that opportunity go to waste. He had over 1,300 yards this past season. A lot of it based off of what he could do. More of a one cut and go type of runner, but remind me a lot of Latavius Murray, who is a running back in the league for a lot of years. So I think this draft, if they want to get that compliment, there are plenty of options on day 3 that would make sense.
Let me throw one at you here, Dane. I'm no Dane Brugler. I'm no Daniel Jeremiah. You're a podcast husband. We share a spouse in the world of the draft with Lance Zierlein. I have not heard a lot, so I'm not you guys. Okay, I'm just a dude watching tape from time to time, and I like saying that. It makes me feel special. But
tape head.
Abram Smith jumped out at me.
Yeah,
and I don't know why. I feel like he gets skinny. I love it. He has explosiveness. It feels like he really punishes defenders that try to tackle. And I'll plead ignorance. I don't really remember him from Baylor games at all. What can you tell me about him? Are my eyes deceiving me, or is there something electric about Abram Smith?
You got a good eye. No, I tell you what, Abram Smith, I think he's a top 10 running back in this class.
Wow.
He had over 1,600 yards last year, and just an outstanding story. He's played linebacker at Baylor before he got his chance at running back, and didn't let it go to waste. He's a little upright. You wish there's some better pad level, but I do agree with you in terms of getting skinny and getting through gaps. He's a guy that has patience. It's a fine line, being patient, but yet being decisive. I think he walks it really well. He's tailor-made for the zone offense, outside split zone. That's what he does best. And I think the additional thing with him, 2 things. One-year starter, which usually when we talk about a one-year starter, it might not be a positive. But with a running back, it is a positive. It means that, only 269 carries in his career in college. So plenty of tread left on the tire. And then secondly, played a lot of special teams. So, if you're a backup running back in the league, be ready to stand out on special teams, because that's going to be your ticket to staying on a roster and being a heavy contributor. Abram Smith did that quite a bit. So I think the special teams, being a performer, 4-core special teamer, but then also what he can do on offense and give you a little bit extra juice. That makes a ton of sense.
Georgeson, clip it. Money. Nailing Abram Smith.
I'm filling in every round.
Flip this one for Saturday.
Wait till they take my punter in the 7th. My God, the victory lap I'm going to do.
Dane, Jay Gillette 03 asks, which position group do you feel would have the greatest impact on this year's team? So I guess what position group is the strongest that could make an impact on the Chargers in 2022 as they look to make a playoff run?
Well, I think the strongest position in this draft is edge rusher. There's no doubt about it. But, obviously I think with, the addition they made with Khalil Mack and, Joey Bosa, we know is not going anywhere. So, edge rusher, I'm not sure necessarily a position they're going to attack early. But after edge rusher, I think you're looking at, wide receiver, corner, even tackle to a lesser extent. And we know they could go, one of those 3 positions, no doubt. Wide receiver is a little top heavy, where we're going to see these guys fly off the board in the first round. 6 wide receivers, maybe 7. They're going to go. And, part of it is some of the contracts being handed out in the NFL right now. Teams want to get younger. They want to get cheaper at a position where wide receiver is now the second most expensive position in the NFL, just behind quarterback. And so a chance to, and it's funny because you look at the hit rate on first round wide receivers, it's not great. I mean, obviously some stars come out of the first round receiver, but it's not the hit rate that necessarily you want. But that's not going to stop teams from taking swings in the first round. So these guys are going to go early. Now I still think there will be receivers in the third round if they want to go that direction. If, a Calvin Austin from Memphis or Khalil Shakur from Boise State.
From Vista Marietta High School.
There you go.
That's where Khalil Shakur's from.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think that this draft, wide receivers, it's a little top heavy. They're going to go early, but there still should be some viable options in round 3 if they want to go that direction. And then I think there is a drop off once you get to day 3, with the 4th, 5th round. But there are a few receivers in that range that could make sense. Velus Jones from Tennessee, Danny Gray from SMU, one of my favorite mid-round receivers this year. He could be this year's version of, say, like a Darnell Mooney, who has grown into a starter in Chicago for the Bears. So the wide receiver position every year, it seems like we're talking about receivers as being a strong position. This year's no different.
Hey, let me just interject real quick because we have a ton of questions, and this one is from John Malloy. Are we taking a receiver round 1? We've talked about 17. Is it a luxury pick? Is it a pick that could put you over the top because you have Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler coming out of the backfield, Gerald Everett at tight end? Maybe that speedster type. We don't know if Jameson Williams will be there, but a guy like Williams or Olave, if they're there at 17, is that, something that you seriously consider?
I think a lot of fans will line up. Okay, these are the top 5 needs. So, first 5 rounds that need to go in order. Top needs first round, second needs second round. I mean, that's not how NFL teams operate. The first round needs to be reserved for the player that's going to best impact your roster. So if that ends up being a receiver, a speed element, a guy that's going to help stretch out the defense, then absolutely. Why not? So yes, a little bit of a luxury pick when you have talent at the position already, but a chance to add another weapon for your young quarterback, a chance to make your offense even that more explosive. Why is that a bad thing? And so I think as the Chargers look at their options, looking at a right tackle, looking at a corner, looking at potential trade opportunities, wide receiver, that's going to be right there in the mix. It'll be interesting when we see that first receiver come off the board, who's left for them. If Jameson Williams is there, I love that fit. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Justin the Jameson, I mean, it'd be fireworks. So because of the ACL, you never know. If he's not there, Chris Olave, that's another fit that I think would make sense. Chris Olave is NFL ready. I mean, he is helping you tomorrow. He's the senior of the group, really polished route runner. The one thing that I dislike about Chris Olave is he's not going to give you much after the catch. He's not a yak type of guy. He's not going to break tackles. There's not really a level of physicality with him, but he's still a player that gets open and he can win deep. And so you can do a lot with a player like Chris Olave that can line up and down the formation, inside, outside, and really give your offense some options.
You mentioned the names, and obviously Shakir's one that I followed. He followed Bachmeier up to Boise State. That connection, always fun to see that with quarterback and receiver. But like George Pickens is another one that's mentioned because he's been hurt. Is he going to slide? So let's just say the Chargers pass on wide receiver in the first round. They don't have a second, and it's that third round group. It's the same round they picked Joshua Palmer in last year. And, it seemed like when they made the selection, it was 50-50 how people felt about him, but we love him. I mean, watching him in the preseason, when he got his opportunities, he really shined. Are these receivers that they might get in like the third, fourth, fifth round, Dane, are they as good as Josh Palmer? Because to me, it's, if you're going to upgrade that position, they got to be better than Josh. They've got to be out. They've got to take that starting position from him and make him a rotational receiver.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent point. And I think that will factor into the decision-making. I don't think that the Chargers are necessarily going into this draft saying, okay, we got to get a receiver. We have to use one of those early picks on a wideout. I think it's if a wide receiver in the first round makes sense because of the way he can impact your offense, then, let's make it happen. And the same thing will be true in the third round. If the right fit is there in terms of what fits this offense, and I don't know that it comes down to better or worse than Palmer, but how does he complement the offense? And so you're getting all these guys on the field and letting them contribute. So yeah, I think that at 7, it's a 79 in the third round. So it's 78 players off the board. There's gonna be a lot of good receivers in that mix. There's a good chance that you're not feeling great about the receivers at 79 in terms of them being a better option than Palmer, who you drafted in the third round last year.
Dane, I'm curious because I don't think we've talked a lot about the tight end position in this draft on the pod. And I know the Chargers got Gerald Everett. I think Gerald's on a 1-year deal of money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have Donald Parham, you have Everett, you have Trey McKitty, who you drafted last year. What about guys like Greg Dulcich and some of these other tight ends that McBride, some of those guys that probably go in the second round?
Yeah, it's a interesting tight end year because we probably don't see a tight end in the first 50 picks. But after that, between picks 51 and 125, tight ends are going to fly off the board. The Trey McBrides, Greg Dulcich, Jeremy Ruckert. I'm a big fan at Ohio State. I think he's going to be a much better pro than he was in college. He's been a little off the radar because of that foot injury that he had at the Senior Bowl. So no combine, no pro day. But Jeremy Ruckert he's a good athlete for a guy that's 6'5.5", 250. Catches the ball really, really well. He's actually a big time soccer player growing up, a goalie. And so he credits, his hands from being a goalie all those years, his hand-eye coordination, the focus and things like that. So Jeremy Ruckert, all you have to do is watch five plays of that Ohio State offense to understand why he wasn't utilized more in the passing game. The wide receivers on that team were just bananas. Yeah. And so Ruckert, but he was still on the field, he's blocking, he's running routes. And when he was targeted, good things happened. So Jeremy Ruckert, I think, is going to end up being a steal when he goes, I think if the Chargers wanted him, they'd have to take him at 79 because I don't think he makes it too much past that. But if they don't want to use a top 100 pick on a tight end, if they want to wait to the 4th round, 5th round, this draft's still going to have options. A guy like Charlie Kohler from Iowa State, 6'6.5", 250, tested outstanding. Even if you don't always see that on the film, he's a guy that works really well in contested windows. He's going to help you in the red zone immediately. Daniel Bellinger from San Diego State, a Las Vegas native, 6'5", 250, another guy that didn't have a ton of production, just how he was used in the offense. But you feel like he could be a better pro than he was used in college. And then one of my favorite, quote unquote sleepers, or not really a sleeper because people know about him, but maybe an underrated tight end, James Mitchell from Virginia Tech, 6'4", 250, had a torn ACL back in September. So, but as long as the doctors tell me, hey, the knee's looking great, it's going to be fully healthy here pretty soon for training camp, James Mitchell could absolutely end up being a steal if he goes 4th, 5th round. Really athletic player, can be a 3-level passing threat for your offense. And I think that'd be a really nice, long-term plan if, say, Gerald Everett's only here for 1 more year.
No, you're just kind of speaking of positions that may slide down the board. How much, like I was listening to your colleague over at The Athletic, Robert Mays, does a great job as well. And he was talking just about position groups and how we now value certain position groups. And I know our colleague, Daniel Jeremiah has been talking about it as well. And you mentioned it with wide receivers, with the contracts that are being handed out. You rarely see tackles, elite tackles drafted outside of the 1st round. Have you noticed a big difference with teams and how they're drafting and how they're not? I mean, we've seen it with running backs, but are we seeing it with safeties? Are we seeing it with linebackers? Are we seeing a number of these positions just being grabbed out of the 1st round and shoved, behind it because it's either A, not a premium position, B, an exceptional one doesn't necessarily make that big of a difference, like a tackle, an edge, a wide receiver, something like that?
Yeah, no doubt. And every year the draft kind of evolves a little bit in terms of how teams attack it. And tackle is one of those positions, like you mentioned, that they go early. I mean, the fact that Rashawn Slater fell to the 13th pick is still kind of a little mind-boggling. But because the guys that are that talented just usually don't last. And people thought overthought, the lack of length with him. But more often than not, tackles, if they're good enough, they're not making it to the second round. So that's definitely one of those positions, the premium positions. I think you include edge rusher in that group. Now, edge rusher this year, because it's such a deep group, I think we will see some pretty good edge rushers go on day 2. But usually if we saw it last year with a run on those guys in the late first. The Odafe Owe and Gregory Rousseau and the kid at Tampa and the Saints drafted. I mean, we saw just a run on edge rushers because we know the value of that position. That'll be the same thing this year. But a couple positions that do get pushed down a little bit. Safety. We don't see a ton of safeties drafted top 10, top 20, top 25. Usually teams will wait, get those guys on day 2. Obviously, like you mentioned, running back, that's something. So the position value is going to be a little different from team to team, but we're seeing more and more. It's pretty obvious which positions that teams value, aside from the quarterback, that's obvious, but tackle, edge rusher, corner, wide receiver, those 4 positions that's what teams are looking for. Those are the cornerstones, the foundational positions. And we usually see those positions go early on draft weekend.
Yeah, I bring it up, Dane, because Chris posted a clip from this conversation we had last week about Penning and what to do if he's there. And, a lot of people push back. That's, why would you draft that guy there? But do you think that carries more value, that when a tackle starts sliding, it is more valuable to say, take him instead of a wide receiver, instead of a different position? Because of, look, the best tackles in the league, when you look historically, the overwhelming percentage of them are taken in the first round.
The draft is all about value, and it's that you want to get proper value for your picks. And I keep going back to your pick needs to be what you think impacts your team the most. And if that's a speed option, then so be it. If that's going to be a right tackle who you feel is going to stabilize that offensive line, then by all means, if you think that's going to impact your offense in the biggest way, that should be the move. So a guy like Trevor Penning, I mean, we saw Rashawn Slater fall to the 13th pick last year. So Trevor Penning falling to the 17th pick, I don't think that's all that alarming, or, I don't think we should be, or why is he still there? Or, any red flags. I mean, you could see it. It's not every team's going to be on board with an FCS player. Even though, I mean, I going back to last August, he was in my top 32 players. So he's been on the NFL radar for quite a long time. And he goes to the Senior Bowl. I thought he helped himself. You love the aggressive mentality. You love the size, the length, the movement skills. Is he still improving in some areas? Does he need to be more consistent with his technique and his footwork, and especially his hands, and just in terms of the placement, the connect rate, and being a better sustained guy at the point of attack? Yeah, it's more of a consistency issue as opposed to something that you really worry about. His issues are coachable, and you feel like as he sees better competition, grows, develops, it's going to get better. So with Trevor Penning, I really like that fit at 17 if he's available to go offensive tackle back-to-back years in the first round, really help out your quarterback.
And it goes to your point, Dan, of like, don't overthink it. You had him in your top 32 a year ago, right? So like he's been on the radar and he's a good player. And I think he would look great on the other side of Rashawn Slater. Another fan question, Mr. Wilson Obozo, do you think that the media and fans view later round draft picks less valuable than they actually are? It's a good question because we fall in love with these mock drafts in the first round. You get just as much of an impact in day 2 and day 3 picks.
Yeah, and the Chargers, they've got plenty of day 3 picks this year, 4 7ths. So it'll be interesting if they use some of those to maybe move around a little bit. If you want to try to move up a few spots to guarantee you get your guy, or if they hold on to them and pick players. You want to round out your roster, so you want guys that are going to come in, compete, and in a draft like this, where I think several positions it stretches to day 3, running back, tight end. Is interior offensive line, they will stretch to day 3, where you feel like you're still getting guys that can be quality contributors. And obviously you're not drafting a player in the 7th round thinking they're to come in and be an immediate impact guy or anything like that. But if you could find someone that's going to help you out on special teams, find someone that's going to push the starters and just be a quality teammate, that's the goal at that point.
Got another fan question in there, Chris. I've been hogging the mic.
No, you're good. Let me.
All right. If you're scrambling, how about this? Dane, when we talk about mid to late rounds, Tom Telesco's done a pretty darn good job, specifically at linebacker. Drew Tranquil, I think, is exceptional. We saw what Kaiser White was able to do. I think he was 4th rounder. So let's go linebacker and see if we can get some depth there. Just some names that I have one in my brain that I'm going to throw at you, but I'll see if you mention him earlier. But just maybe some names that might help replace Kaiser or add some depth to that group that might be available in that 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th range.
Yeah, I really like this linebacker class. I think it stretches where you're going to feel good about some of the options that you have there. And we're going to see plenty of these guys go in the first 2 rounds. Guys like Leo Chenal and Christian Harris and Troy Anderson out of Montana State. These guys would go early, but late 3rd, 4th round, a guy like JoJo Doman from Nebraska. I think he fits that nickel linebacker, a guy that can drop in coverage, just a really quality player. And you get him in the 4th round. I think that'd be a pickup that makes sense for this roster and this team, what they want to do on defense. I really like Malcolm Rodriguez out of Oklahoma State. Is that your name?
That's
right
the
there?
guy. Dude, that
right.
guy is incredible. I have never seen someone with a nose for the ball. He is everywhere. Blew my mind when I watched that guy.
And he was a dual threat quarterback in high school. This isn't a guy that's been playing linebacker his entire life. I mean, he was a big time wrestler in high school, come out of Oklahoma.
I always love a good wrestler.
That's right.
If you're a wrestler, you can go.
Hey, 2-time state champion right here. He had a 30-3 record over his career in high school. But he goes to Oklahoma State and they move him to linebacker. And yeah, this guy was a big time player. I agree 100% with what you said about his nose for the ball. I mean, he's very, very instinctive, right place, right time. He reads run pass really, really quickly. So, he understands play development better than a lot of these linebackers that you see at the college level. And he reacts really quickly. So coverage, downhills as a more of a run defender, he could do both. Tested really well. He's a little undersized. You worry about the lack of length in terms of taking on blocks, quickly stacking, shedding. For a guy that's 5'11", 230 with just over 30-inch arms, but he has speed, he has explosiveness, and he's a durable player. I mean, he's a productive player. He's proven himself. So I like him quite a bit. I think he's going to be a guy that probably doesn't go to the 4th round, but he's going to stick.
Dave, we'll get you out of here on this last question. We have you next week, and I'm sure fans are going to be pouring them in as we get ready for next Thursday. 92, get her done. Who do you think we should draft? Best available or draft a need at 17? And, Tom Telesco's always said we take the best player. I don't know if you could shed some more light on drafting a need versus best available, because we know there's a limit to that, right? Like if you like Malik Willis, you're not drafting Malik Willis if you have Justin Herbert on your team.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like the best available within reason,
Yes.
That's the strategy to take. And it's, but the Chargers are going to have their own draft board. I just came out with my top 300 on The Athletic, but most team draft boards are 125, 150. They're not these extensive draft boards that a lot of teams or that, those of us on the outside are looking at. And so I think their 1st round board will be set up, but with need in mind, with their ideal targets, knowing who's going to be there, who has a chance to be there. And you always care about need, obviously, especially with the 1st round pick. You want a guy that can come in and impact your team. But football is a game of attrition as well. It's something that this is a 5-year commitment, not who's going to help you right away. So it's something that you need the short term and the long term in mind. And above all, I keep going back to this, but you want the guy that impacts your roster the most. And that could be, you can make an argument for a lot of different directions, but who's going to help put points on the board, wins the win column. That's who you need to go after. And opinions will differ. Could that be an offensive lineman? Could it be a stud defender? Could that be a receiver? But whoever you think is going to best impact the roster, that needs to be the 1st round pick.
Money, should we?
I got one more for him, and it's a quick one, Dane.
Okay.
Top 4 punters, go.
That's what I was going to ask.
Well, Matt Araiza, San Diego State. You got to start with him, right?
Right?
And then Jordan Stout out of Penn State.
Right.
Big fan of his. Jake Camarda out of Georgia.
Hold on.
Come on, let's get my guide 4. That's why
I
made it 4.
Guide 4. Who's your guy? Is it? I got Trenton Gill myself, NC State punter at 4.
Okay, now
Who are you looking
Crikey,
at?
Crikey
USC?
is my guy. My guy's an Aussie. He's a lefty Aussie.
Okay. What part of the country are we talking about here?
Big Ten.
Illinois?
Yeah.
Blake Hayes? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Tall drink of water. Giant lever. Directional.
6'4", 225. Yeah, he's a big boy.
I knew it. How about the kid, by the way? How about the kid from Mater Dei? Is he gonna make a team? Stonehouse from Colorado State. He's a local kid.
Yeah, I think that he's on the short list. I mean, we'll see probably 3 of these guys get drafted, and then the next 4, 5, 6, have a good chance in camp. And he's part of that second tier, that 4, 5, 6 that's got a real shot.
Is the Penn State kid going to get drafted ahead of Ariza? Sorry, Chris.
I don't think so, but you never know. It's possible. Ariza just man, he's special, right?
Where's he going to go, Dane? You think?
I think 4th round. I think he's that good.
That's rich.
Yeah, if he's a weapon, teams view him as a defensive weapon, because of what he could do with that booming leg of his.
Yeah,
man, I didn't know if we were gonna get the punter talk in next week or this week. I'm glad.
Of course, we're gonna get punter talk in.
I'm glad we closed it. Hey, Dane, this was awesome, brother. Next week we'll do it again. Fans love it, and we're pumped to have you this month.
I can't wait to do it. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
All right, guys, that'll do it for us. We are almost there in Las Vegas. For Matt Money Smith and Dane Brugler, I'm Chris Hayre. This has been Chargers Weekly.